Video take 2, Electric Boogaloo, in which I actually remembered to put my headset microphone down by my mouth instead of up by my ear. And I remembered to hold the fucking cord so that it doesn't rub constantly. Side note, you can hear my computer humming a little bit. I can't do anything about that, I apologize. But anyway, with the long-awaited fustercluck that was the video, which those among the fandom will know just by my mentioning it, even without the title, I have been presented with just a treasure trove of topics that I can write about and speak about and record. There's just so many. It's great. Dozens of them. There's dozens of them. And I only watched half of the damn video. It was 2 hours long, and after I spent half of it rolling my eyes and laughing at the sheer insanity of basically every point that wasn't half a decade old and agreed upon by everyone, including the writing staff, and mostly fixed already, but that can be debated by some people, I'm sure. I gave up. I had more important and fun things to do. Completely irrelevant side note here, it takes 5 hours for white paint to dry. Thereabouts. Much more relevant side note, this video will be sorted into internal parts. Timestamps and their labels will be listed in the description for your leisure. A third side note, I have tea in front of me. I will be taking drinks of it while I record this because I'm doing it in one run, and this is the second run. And yay. And it's still hot, and I don't know how. But anyways, to start with, I'm going to briefly explain who Cinderfall is. Normally, I would presume everyone involved in the RWBY discourse, so to say, both the hatedom and the fandom, know her. But after watching the video, TM, I am no longer assuming that people know the basics. Because apparently, Rooster Teeth had way too much faith in people. But lucky for me, I'm a professional edgelord, so I don't have faith in anyone. Now, there was where I was going to insert a joking sort of skit where I describe Cinder and how she looks in as funny a way as I could manage. But then I realized that my editing software despises me, and that I was going to just have to record a picture of her smirking cockily at the screen to put this to. So, kinda ruined the joke. The best part is, I already wrote all of the jokes. There were 6 of them. I had fun when I realized that. Note to self, kids, or note to all of you out there. Test your editing software before you do your script. You'll thank me later. Cinderfall is a tier 2 villainess in RWBY. I intend on making a video on it at some point, but for now, Salem is tier 1, Cinder is tier 2, Emerald is tier 3. If you look at these 3 and how they function in relation to each other, you have the gist of what I'm talking about. I don't know if I'm going to mention her tier again, but I wanted it here just in case. Also gives me an excuse to make the other video. Yay. As of Volume 7, her motivations are simple. She wants revenge on the people that hurt her, that took her eye and took her arm, and she wants power. Now, these aren't exactly new or particularly deep villain motivations. I have no problem with that. Not everything needs to reinvent the wheel. It's fine to just have a basic villain. It's fine to just have a basic, like, Call of Duty shooter. Not every villain needs to be frickin' Thanos. Cinder is a rather simple, straightforward character. And her plans are too, for the most part. Which somehow didn't stop the guy in the video on mostly, no, wholly missing out on her entire plan. But hey, I get to make a video. So, anyways, as I said, her overall methods and motivations are simple enough. But what was Cinder's ultimate goal in volumes 1 to 3? To kill Amber and finish stealing the maiden's power. The Fall Maiden, specifically. Because Rooster Teeth hit that one just on the nose. How did she aim to do that, though? Well, it starts with a fancy material called dust. And a sip from my tea while I scroll down my script. And it's somehow still hot. Ow! In Ruby, what provides electricity? Dust. What propels a bullet? Dust. What does all of these things? All of this technology that we see? Dust. Dust can be considered in the same way we would consider oil, coal, whatever else you want to think of, in a lot of ways. Every single thing, in one way or another, relies upon it to function. Vehicles that bring you food run on it as fuel. I think they're electric cars. That's kind of what I've gotten the gist of. Your lights use them to, well, light things. The filaments are made of, I would guess, like elements and the dust, or it's just electricity that's from the dust. Your stove uses it to cook your food, and your fridge to keep it cool and preserved. Your homes use it to cool and heat, to keep you comfortable no matter what it's like outside. For us, this is a variety of things: coal, nuclear power, wind power, and solar power if you live in a country that isn't trying to murder every single living thing. But for Remnant, this is all dust. Now, you can probably imagine what would happen to our world as it is if someone suddenly started stealing every drum of oil, every bin of coal, every rock of uranium. I don't know how reactors work, by the way. I think uranium comes in rocks and they do stuff to it. And then they started hoarding it. We don't know why they're doing it. We don't know how they keep doing it. We don't know where they're keeping it. But no one can stop them for some reason. And suddenly, supplies are stretched to the breaking point. Just imagine that chaos. And we don't even have giant monsters prowling the earth for the sole purpose of murdering us all to make that a worse problem than it already is. Cinder's plan is really quite a simple one once it's all said and done and it's out in the open and you're just looking at it. She steals dust to weaken public faith in Huntsman and Huntresses and, by extension, Beacon Academy. With faith shaken in Beacon, faith is shaken in Ozpin, eroding the headmaster's control and influence, and the council's willingness to tolerate him exercising either. So, using that same dust she has been gathering, she stages the breach. With the breach, faith in Ozpin to provide security for the kingdom. However, he was doing that. I don't care. And the Vital Festival are both shattered. As a result, General Ironwood is ceded full control and authority over the security for the festival, and from the phrasing and the amount of Atlesian soldiers we see in Vale after this point, takes over from Ozpin there as well. At the very least, his soldiers and robots are also in Vale, bolstering the hunters responding to the Grim that would have been attracted by the fear and anger of the attacks, and just doing whatever else. This is what Cinder wants. She's already, with the breach, she's put Robin in place with the Black Queen virus to take control of his machines and turn them on Vale and Beacon. Because, of course, Ironwood has complete control of his droids stored directly on his flagship, and of course he would put Roman right there. Because Ironwood wants to have his hands involved in every pie. The dust robberies then lead straight into putting Ironwood in charge of security, which puts Roman on his flagship, which leads straight into her attack on Vale and Beacon. This is the end of her first plan for a while. The dust robberies sow tension and fear, then using those supplies, she plays on that fear and sets it up so that Ironwood's forces are where she needs them for the fall of Beacon. 1, 2, 3, simple as can be. Her plan isn't that difficult, it's not that complicated, it's just there. I'm belaboring the point because apparently it needs it. Now, this is one side of her two concurrent running plans. A plan inside her plan, if you like. One that involved planning for Osmond's plans and Ironwood's plans, so she can plan around their plans that they make trying to plan around her plans. Anyway, the other concurrent plan is infiltration of Beacon Academy, posing as a student from Haven thanks to Leonardo's corruption by Salem. Because, the cowardly lion. In Beacon, she hacks into the CCT and Beacon systems, and later Ironwood's scroll when he connects it to Osmond's display. This, of course, because Ironwood gives Cinder information on Penny, on what Ironwood's brought with him, everything. And for the most part, if not entirely, sets up her plan for the fall and the festival. As students from Haven, allegedly, she enrolls her team into the Vital Tournament. They use Ironwood's access because, of course, he has direct control because he's in charge of security to rig their matches. This lets them set up who they want to go forward, who they want to get kicked out, and ultimately sets up Yang to quote unquote attack Mercury. This, at least in public, obvious display of brutality from Ozpin's students raises tension and anger even more, drawing more Grimm to the outskirts of the city, putting even more, and that of course would add more fear because now there's more giant monsters that exist solely to kill you nearby. And it also, of course, further breaks down faith in Ozpin, Beacon, and the Hunters as a whole. Then, once her team is free to be moved about as she wishes, since they left with Mercury to go back to Haven, I think was the story that they told. Emerald makes Pyrrha rip Penny apart. Cinder seizes control of the CCT, building on everything that she's done thus far, and pinning it on Ozpin and the governments, and saying it was their fault. This fear and tension, combined with the Grim assault, and eventually her having Roman seize control of the robots to have them turn on everyone, like Cinder was saying Atlas was doing, invading. This causes the fall of Beacon. This is the point where Plan A, the dust robbery leading all the way up to the breach, and after that, eventually the fall, merges with Plan B, or infiltration of Beacon and the CCT to get at the Maiden. These are both two very simple, straightforward plans. So as I I can't sew. Cinder's plan was rather simple and carried through from Volume 1 to Volume 3. Nothing was seemingly dropped, nothing was abandoned, and no time was wasted throughout this entire endeavor. Instead, while other things were happening at Beacon with the cast, Cinder's plan was happening. While we got to know Jean and Ruby and their teams, and got to see them evolve and talk and make friends and fall in love, Cinder was maneuvering to destroy it all. We were shown both angles, getting to see both all of the character growth moments, all of the arcs, all of the talking, all of the emotions, all of the connections, and we got to see many of her major decisions where they essentially explained at each step of the plan what she was doing and the eventual consequences, which were rather obvious. I personally find this arc, Cinder's plan, rather excellent myself. Now, I have complaints about Volume 1 to 3. I have a lot of them, in fact. Some of them are old hat, like the video. It mentions Emerald and Mercury when they're talking to Cinder about Pyrrha's semblance. They mention it by name, which doesn't make much sense. But, like I said, those are old hat for the most part. This arc, this plan, how it was executed, how it was demonstrated, I find to be excellent personally. And objectively, I would say it's at least competent and clear. We got to spend and as for presentation for the story itself, we got to spend time with our cast, getting to know them, getting to see them grow, while pieces were moved around across the board in front of us to be set up for the climax. A climax that, from what I understand, unilaterally everyone likes. Even the guy who did the video said he liked it, said he enjoyed it. But I'm not going to talk about what I think his motivations were or the quality of his video. That's not the purpose here. I'm talking about Cinder's plan. So, what do you think about it? Was Cinder's plan as well executed and planned out as I say? Was it as simple? Was it as neatly packaged? Or is the video right? And these are separate arcs entirely, held together by glue and duct tape, and little else. Will Blake and Yang just frick already? Should I do a video explaining how they did not, in fact, change Yang's semblance twice? Will Ruby get to say the fuck word? All of these questions and more I look forward to hearing you answer in the comments or yelling at me on Twitter. One of the two. But I hope you all have a good night. Stay safe out there. Try not to catch the literal plague. And watch out for relatively attractive megalomaniacs with a penchant for fire. Have a good one.